everyone.
Morning.
All right. I'm here today to tell you to stop going with the flow and instead start setting and achieving your goals. By the way, being that direct is a little out of my character. Why? Well, I'm a 9 on the Enneagram, and if you don't know what that means, here are the basics. So the Enneagram is a personality framework, and the 9s are the peacemakers. We are passive and avoid conflict at all costs. Basically, our personality is the definition of go with the flow. 5 years ago, I learned about the Enneagram and many other personality frameworks. I learned that my natural tendency was to go along with what others expected of me to the point of complacency. I was checked out. And to be honest, I had no big goals or dreams or even direction for my future. I'm ashamed to say that I wasted the bulk of my free time for years, either online shopping, Zillow and Chill, which is like Netflix and Chill, but with houses, and my personal favorite, which was curling up with a big stack of magazines and flipping through them for hours. Here's proof. I was playing it safe, and I was really fully snuggled up in my comfort zone. All my life I'd been going with the flow, and it had gotten me really stuck. And now I'll tell you what I did about that. In 2015, I quit my creative dream job, surprising myself and my colleagues. I'd been a display artist for the clothing company Anthropologie for 8 years. My coworkers called me a lifer, and for good reason. I come from a long line of people that have stayed at the same job for decades. The truth was I loved my job, but I was burnt out. I began working at the Indianapolis Museum of Art at Newfields as a technician in art conservation. A bit of an odd transition as I had no prior museum experience. I really appreciated the slower change of pace, but the lack of creativity left me stir-crazy. And here's where things get interesting. One morning, while dusting the art in the Contemporary Design Gallery, I had an aha moment. I had years of designing and creating retail visuals, so why not offer that service to other local boutiques? But I didn't actually know any boutique owners, so I did something that scared the crap out of me. I showed up in person and I pitched myself. And some people said no, and then some people said yes. In the summer of 2016, I had 2 clients and a business named Color Story Studio. It was a side hustle and a bit of an experiment. I didn't know anything about running a business, and I was afraid of taking on too much too soon. I devoured all the business and personal development books and podcasts I could find, things that I'll admit 5 years ago I would have said were for nerds and losers. But as the months passed, I began to see some success, and I began to push myself to take on jobs outside of retail. I said yes to designing custom lighting, yes to permanent installations and wall treatments. Believe it or not, I even missed working for Anthropologie, so I reached out to them and asked them to hire me back as a freelancer, and they said yes. So I began traveling to open new stores and work with the corporate creative team. And here's where things get interesting again. For the first time since college, I got intentional about my future. I learned to write my goals down in the present tense. Now, by the way, this practice is nothing new. Napoleon Hill talked about it in the 1930s, and Rachel Hollis talks about it today. My biggest goal was to be able to work full-time in my business. And finally, in June of 2018, after 2 years of working nonstop, balancing my full-time job and my now full-time side hustle, I was able to leave Newfields. The funny thing is that my newfound entrepreneurial spirit had me involved in lots of projects outside the conservation department, including the design of Lily House for winter lights. Luckily, after some negotiating, Newfields decided to hire my business to execute the design. In the 15 months of working for myself full-time, I pushed myself outside my comfort zone to grow my business. I've expanded my services, and I've now worked with over 24 different businesses. I've been featured on a couple podcasts, and today marks my 5th public talk. In fact, here's proof that writing down your goals is magic. I've been writing down, I give a Creative Mornings talk in 2019 for most of this year. Sometimes going with the flow can be really great, and sometimes it can leave you really stuck. That's what happened to me, but I'm learning to push against the current. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, guys, my name's Ross.
Check. Hold on.
Check.
Check. Okay, go ahead.
All right, my name's Ross. Some of you might know me from Provider, Go Check Coffee. And here recently, I started working in real estate with Black Collective. So, if any of y'all are looking to buy or sell a house, let me know.
And I am DylanMorse, coffee boy and director of accounts for Tinker Coffee. Most recently, I started a little smash burger pop-up called Knuckle Puck, so come on out and have a burger with us sometime.
Yeah, so we wanted to share kind of our unique perspective on flow, and that is workflow in coffee cafe setting, where you're interacting with, working with, and reading people all day.
And if that flow stops and you can't find yourself back in that groove, it can affect your entire day and everyone around you. You are affecting the tone of the day for everyone you touch.
That's so good.
Oh, yeah.
There are figurative and literal flows happening simultaneously in a cafe. There's the flow of coffee,
The flow of perfectly textured milk into cups of espresso,
flow of guests in and out of the door,
and the flow between you and your barmate. Staying one step ahead means knowing when not to fight the wave, but to just roll with it.
and you're not doing it alone. We're going to focus on the relationship behind the bar between you and your coworker. And that relationship can either bring harmony or discord.
As a barista, I'm responsible for the creation and delivery of beverages, right? But that doesn't mean I'm limited to only those two things. We need to stay flexible, okay?
And that's where you need to know where you fit in and where your partner fits in.
Right.
So, for example, I'm going to dial in espresso in the morning. I'm going to brew the first batch of coffee.
So I need to make sure the cash drawer has money in it, and I've selected the perfect playlist.
It's pretty straightforward in a cafe. If you're working with a new product or if you're working with someone new, communication is absolutely key. More importantly, it's about reading nonverbal cues.
So if there's a line of tickets lined up, and there's something that I can do to knock out some of those drinks, I need to be able to shift my focus and lighten the load for my partner.
God, but it sucks so bad when you've got a huge pile of dishes and you literally can't pour another drink until you find a cup and give it a scrub.
So you need to stay one step ahead. You need to anticipate the needs of your partner to stay one step ahead.
Yeah, and if you get knocked out of the flow because of a missed order or you're cleaning up a spilled drink, it's easy to recover when your systems are in place. And your partner is a tool.
You're a tool.
A resource, a part of the system.
Gotcha. Sorry. And if you find yourself in that situation and your systems are in place and your tickets are still stacked up neatly, you've got a nice stack of cups, it's like a game of double dutch. You can jump right in.
All right, so, over the course of a shift, I might find myself stumbling over a speed bump.
And I might be stumbling on my own.
It's important to see when your partner's in the weeds and know when to pull them out. It's going to save you a ton of time for future transactions.
But to get to that professional level of flow with another person, it takes time. It takes repetition. It takes intent.
So dialing in your product is just one part of the equation, but when you dial in your flow, you're able to learn better every day by analyzing your systems and processes.
What could I have done better to help my barman?
What could we have done better to speed up service? There's always ways to improve. More than today, it compounds day after day. It's funny, intent and persistence over time look a lot like natural ability.
But it's not. It takes quality time, it takes repetition, and it takes intent. But most of all, it takes having each other's backs. Thank you.
Good morning. One more time. Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'm originally from Houston, Texas. I've been in Indy for about 8 years. And I'll just be frank about it. Like, I had no idea that I would end up here, because isn't that like life? Where life just kind of does whatever it wants to do. And even though you think you're in control, you find out quickly you're not. And with that being said, I think about death a lot. And I promise I won't bring the energy down. Y'all like, what the hell? I do. I think about death a lot. And the reason is because a few years ago, I lost my brother to a drowning. And in that moment, I was all of a sudden faced with my mortality, right? Because you go, oh, that shit's real. Like, I didn't, like, you don't, it doesn't feel real, you know it, but you don't really think about it. And so I thought about, who do I want to be, or what do I want people to say about me at the end of my life? And all of a sudden, I start working backwards from there. And so with that in mind, I am like the queen of control. So I am a go-getter. I am ambitious. I am the opposite of what Sheena said she was on the Enneagram. I am like the others. Let's get it. I wake up in the morning. I'm checking emails. I've always had like a job and like 2 or 3 side hustles. I'm a goer. And I'm a goer, and then I crash. And I go some more, and then I crash. And so I think about that in the way that I was handling my career. I was always the girl who had like the job. And when I say the job, I had like the title. I knew exactly what my next job was going to be. Like the day I started that job, I was like, y'all know I'm not going to be here long because I know what I'm doing next. So, you know, I'm not going to say that to you, but I know. And so I always had like these secret things that I was working towards behind the scenes. And those were my passions. Because I had decided that there was no way in hell that I could do what I loved for a living, right? That didn't pay the bills. What paid the bills was working for corporate America, and I started to feel owned. I am not telling you to quit your job. I'm just telling you what I felt like. And so, as I continued to do that, I was working for really great organizations. I worked with really great people. And so the last job that I had, I remember the day that I did the interview. And you know how you just know you have a job in the pocket? You're like, that's my shit. Y'all don't hire me. You might not know, but I know. And true enough, that's what happened. I got hired. So I get into the job, and day one I have 600 emails. And I'm like, oh Lord, what is this about? And the energy was quick, and it was fast, and it was very, very much so high learning. And like every day I showed up to work, it was something new, which is super exciting for me. But also I realized that I can do this, but you're not going to have time for anything else. Because when I used to go home, I was spent. I was done. Like people would call me, I would just watch the phone ring. Or I would, I also sing on the side, and just the thought of like practicing after all of that, I was like, I don't have it. And so I did something that is very uncharacteristic of me. I showed up one day at work. I had sent 2 of my friends a text on a Friday and said, I don't know if I made the right decision when I took this job. All 6 figures. I don't know if I made the right decision. And then, of course, your friends are like, yes, you did, girl. You good. You're going to be all right. You fine. Get that shit together. And so that Monday morning, I walked into that job and I said, this is not the right fit for me. I appreciate it, but I'm going to move on. And so that day I walked away from a 6-figure salary, which hurts like hell because that paycheck was pretty. But I said, for the first time in life, I'm going to bet on me. And what does bet on me mean? Bet on me means I sing as much as I can. Bet on me means I speak to encourage people. Bet on me means I teach people about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And for the first time in my life, I feel free. and I felt super whole. Because when I think about when my brother died and showing up at his funeral and hearing what people said about him and knowing that every word was true, I knew that was what I wanted to be at the end of my life. Thank you.
Not as tall as everyone else. Too many Oreos as a kid. There is such a thing, by the way. Some of you know me quite well, and it may come as no surprise to you that during the peak of my teenage extroverted powers, that I was the Indiana State Student Council president throughout my junior and senior years of high school. Boom. That's real, folks. That is real hair. I'm not bald, I just like the shape of my skull. During those elections, I ran on a campaign called Do the Drew, where we took cans of Mountain Dew and wrapped them in custom labels. That doesn't sound appropriate now that I think about it. Complete with a list of the ingredients needed for great leadership, 100% daily value, determination, honor, and whatever else I decided sounded good that day while we were using our crappy printer. Even when my reign of perpetual puns and big hair ended, I continued to be involved with the Indiana State Student Council while in college, acting as a junior counselor for a summer camp for Indiana high school students. One of my favorite activities was the annual tradition of the Trust Walk. We would blindfold each of the campers, have them hold hands, and gently guide them through a variety of obstacles. The kicker was that nobody could talk. This activity was done to convey the importance of trust, that you had to learn how to trust the person in front of you, but also return the favor to the person behind you as well. During my final summer as a junior counselor, that fateful night arrived as we appropriately blindfolded the students, tied their hands together, and began leading them from one end of the campus park to the other, which, by the way, if somebody just walked in and had no idea what I was talking about, this would be a super awkward part of this speech. So as counselors, we would position ourselves as guides, or more like bumpers, to make sure that this meandering monster stayed on course. I was acting as a lookout near the end of the line, and one by one, individuals successfully navigated around a large metal light post. I became a bit too confident in their abilities, and I looked away when I heard an oof. I turned around. I immediately recognized that one of our campers had just face-planted right into that incredibly stationary object. Let's just call her Jenny for the sake of the story, and I mean her, not the light post. So I ordered the line to stop as I assessed the damage. I asked if she was okay. She began to cry, but she said she was fine. I wasn't convinced, clearly, so I kept asking over and over again, and Jenny repeated that she was okay. She claimed the impact had startled her more than anything. Later that evening, back at the dorm, I was hanging out with some campers when Jenny, who had just directly greeted a light pole with her face, tapped me on the shoulder and asked if we could talk. I surely thought this was going to be the moment that she would tell me that she would never trust anyone ever again, that this embarrassing moment on the Trust Walk had completely destroyed her faith in humanity. Jenny looked at me and said, "Thank you." And I said, "For what?" She replied, "For caring." If that would have happened at home, no one would have cared enough to ask if I was okay. We hugged and instantly started crying, but those tears didn't feel sad. This incredibly talented young adult had felt vulnerable enough with me to let me know that her life wasn't okay, that she wasn't living upon a sturdy foundation, and yet she was still here at this summer camp, embracing the challenge of spending several days with a bunch of strangers. And for her efforts, she was rewarded by headbutting a giant blunt object. During that trust walk, she was scared, she was nervous, she trusted us to keep her safe. She went with the flow and got hurt. And yet, she still had the courage to say thanks. In the end, I think she realized something that she hadn't before. Perhaps it was that home wasn't her foundation, it didn't need to be. It was that she was the only foundation she needed to thrive. And that somewhere she was special and cared for. We are all dealing with tragedy, loss, and grief. that no one else sees or fully understands. The flow of our lives is never perfect nor entirely doomed. We cannot stop taking chances. We must embrace joy, but we also must embrace failure. By stifling all of our emotions to reduce pain, we also deny ourselves the humanity that makes life worth living. All things become dull and listless. The only way to keep going is putting our hopes and fears into others' hands and trusting the results, even if it hurts. Because no matter what, we're learning and growing together. Thank you.
Hello. It's already starting. We all want to be in the flow of life most of the time. And by that I mean handling the things that come at us easily and with grace. But that isn't always easy. I do think Mother Nature made a mistake. I think we should have come into this world with instructions. That little baby's got this booklet in its hand, or even a folded piece of paper that says troubleshooting tips. How to stop overthinking, worrying about the future, holding on to the past. All those things that keep us stuck in life. Have you ever had a leak under your sink, a pipe that leaks, and you put a bucket under there? And then you leave for the day, you go to work, and you come back late. You check the bucket, and oh my gosh, it's overflowing. It's such a mess. You've got to lift it up, dump it in the sink, and get water all over you and all over the place. What would it have been like if you could have emptied it a little bit during the day? It would have been a lot more manageable. Well, we function a lot like that bucket. We hold on to little annoyances and worries through the day, and then at the end of the day, we wonder why we're drinking more, irritable, can't sleep. Well, if you play along with me for the next few minutes, I'm going to show you a couple ways to empty your bucket throughout the day. So this is a participatory event here. So I'd like you to pull up some worry, some problem that maybe you've got to present pretty soon somewhere. Something that's bothering you. Now, don't make it your biggest trauma in life, because I've only got 4 minutes left. So everybody just kind of give me a few nods. Just pull something that's worrisome. It could be an old memory. So when you have it, I want you to just sit with it. Just kind of feel it, notice your body. Maybe you're just thinking of it. And then either hand, it doesn't matter. I want you to just make a fist. It doesn't have to be a tight fist. And this is something you can do and nobody even knows you're doing it. So sit with that worry, sit with that problem, we'll call it. And I'm just going to count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and open your hand. Now just look at something on the table in front of you. This is just like a little palate cleanser for your neurons, just anything neutral. Now go to your good place. And this can be a great memory, it could be being outside on a beautiful day, playing with your animals, hanging with your family. Make it really good. And when you've got that, make a fist with your other hand. Make that good place really good. See what you saw, feel what you felt, make it bigger, brighter. And then open your hand. And again, think of something neutral. Now, the neutral just is it can just be a very quick thing. It doesn't have to take long. Now I'm going to count to 3, and then make a fist with both hands at the same time. 1, 2, 3. And then just notice your breathing. Because noticing your breathing takes you out of the future, out of the past, and it grounds you in the moment. And usually in the moment, we're okay. So go ahead and open your hands, both of them. And now notice, is it as easy to find the original problem? That was kind of quick, but I think you might find that it's a little harder to bring that up. It might feel a little more diffuse. So the other thing that I'd like to do is to have you just participate, uncross your legs. If you're sitting in a low chair, put them on the floor. And close your eyes. That helps me too. So now you're not looking at me. And just begin to notice your breath. You might notice when an inhalation becomes an exhalation. You just focus on your breath. And now begin to imagine that your heart is acting as a lung, that it's exchanging air. It's breathing in and breathing out. And by focusing on the heart as you breathe, your heart being your largest electromagnetic organ, it begins to send signals to your brain to slow everything down. It's a very simple thing. It's a great way to go to sleep. And as you continue to notice your breath, allowing your body to just feel heavy and relaxed. And then in your mind, you have a couple suggestions for yourself. You might say, when I open my eyes, I feel rested, relaxed, and centered. So open your eyes, feeling more rested. And using a few of these things throughout the day does help get you back into the flow. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. I had a whole plan for what I was going to do today, and I recently decided to throw it out the window, so just be here with me. So as we talked about earlier, I'm the yoga girl, the woo-woo yoga stuff, and how appropriate for a title called Flow. When I'm in spaces like this, as we are right now, with all of your beautiful faces looking here as you are, I personally am in a state of flow. A lot of people feel really uncomfortable in this space, but this is when I feel most connected with other people and wholly present in exactly where we are. So I would like to give you a couple of tools to drop into this space with me. So if you feel comfortable, only if you feel comfortable, please close your eyes. If you don't feel comfortable, maybe gently lowering your eyes. And start to allow your breath to be slow and steady. Finding whatever that rhythm of slow and steady looks like for you. Coming into that place of where the breath just feels nice. It feels luscious. It feels nourishing. And I just want to start with a little quote. Be like water. Empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless like water. If you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle and it becomes the bottle. You put it into a teapot and it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend. That is for you to sleep. And then take a deep inhale, the biggest one you've taken yet. And exhale out of the nose, or you can sigh it out if you feel comfortable. And as you're ready, you'll slowly lift the eyes. So flow is achieved when your body, mind, and your spirit are completely present and wholly aware of where we are. It is that place where time slows, where you feel that moment where you just take a deep inhale and exhale. It is a form of meditation. In yoga philosophy, we call this dhyana, which is an intense and focused meditation space. Now, you don't have to be on a seat cushion to experience flow. Musicians also call it being in the pocket. A lot of athletes will call it being in some kind of rhythm or flow or being in the zone. And it just shows that there's a lot of different tools and experiences that we can have that sink us into this place. Before we leave our time together, I would really like to do a short exercise with y'all, if you're willing. So we're going to come back to a space of some stillness. Maybe this time you get a little bit more comfortable in your seat. Maybe let the feet come down to the ground. Maybe walk the feet wide, because hips need space, contrary to popular belief. And once you're settled there, then you can soften the face and close or lower the eyes. And I will say that everything that I say here and I'm doing here is an offering. This is not a dictatorship. I want you to be wholly present where you are. and start to come back into your slow and steady breath. Letting the inhales and exhales settle in. And then maybe you start to visualize being in a space or in a car with your favorite people, as many as you can fit in whatever vehicle that you're riding on. And maybe you're riding down a long road in the middle of the desert somewhere, similar to like a Route 66. That scene that you see in a movie where you're just driving, there's nothing in front of you, you can see nothing behind you but road. The temperature is perfect. The sun feels lovely. There's laughter and love. And you are exactly where you need to be. Physically, you are safe with your favorite people. Maybe somebody made the perfect playlist and you're singing at the top of your lungs. Maybe arms are flailing out of the window. Maybe you're just sitting calmly observing all of it, but you are fully immersed and fully held in that moment. And just take a few breaths here. Allowing yourself to be in this temporary space of flow. Now start to bring your awareness and your senses back into this room. So maybe starting to feel the light on the other side of your eyes. Maybe sensing the other people around you. And then as you're ready, you can gently lift your eyes. Hi. I really hope that my presence here with y'all today could be a little drop in before you started your day, your weekend, or whatever's coming next for you, that ease and also support that comes with being in a state of flow is always available to you. You don't have to simulate it. You don't have to be anything besides exactly who the hell you are. Thank you.